Here. This is just for the record right here, because on Moorish World TV, the host Taharka Bey keeps repeating that he never mentioned Jacob York's name. He never mentioned, or his name was not mentioned, should we say? His name was not mentioned, but he just jumped into live when he was interviewing Dr. York's daughter regarding this topic matter right here, York and Jacob York explosive interview, Nuwapians, child molestation, culture, and fraud. And he was not the one that just pulled it out, and neither did but someone in the live dropped his name in the chat. But then on his subsequent videos, Taharka Bey on Moorish World TV, he makes it out to be like it was just Jacob York that just inserted himself into the conversation. And even he said that, well, his name was mentioned. If you go further in the video, we don't want to really play his whole video or too much of it, because, you know, he goes around saying that, oh, we're making him like famous, or people are making bottom feeders, and that's not I and I. We just, you know, checked it out. Our wife checked it out, and we was following up on like the brother, not my brother, but one they call Brother Polite's rape thing, you know. And when we sort of hear these inconsistencies, and then one's kind of, it's like the lady protested too much, you know, like I think something like that Shakespearean thing, like when somebody's protesting too much, like, oh, he just inserted himself in here, and then he does this whole thing on Jacob York, basically saying that is really Jacob York he's, how do you call it, allegedly. He uses a lot of allegedly. You know, he's just investigating, trying to get to the truth. But every time I hear him say that, Jacob York, and this is not defending Jacob York either. This is just the fact that it's some either forgetfulness, right? Not so much critical thinking, but maybe hypocritical thinking, right? Because very clear, and this is we're coming up to the minute mark. It's like 1:15 or so. We just backed it up so we can segue and have this here for the record. All right, so let's just do this right here. Okay, we're holding the camera and all this at one time. Let's just do this right there.
My situation shows that you know, they're not interested in the black children per se. They can give a damn about our children. They were trying to stop his movement because his movement represented a level of power, if you will.
Keep watching and listening.
An organization of Nubians, black people, Moors, that were moving independently of the government. And when you begin to exercise that kind of power, where you have land, you're trying to eat off your own land, you are eating off your own land, you have your own language, you have your own culture that's not vetted and authorized through them. When you think for yourself and are in the position where you can actually implement things for yourself.
Okay, we're going back too far. Not all that.
That movement, because
that's
Umar's husband. It was going so fast and getting to the point that we wouldn't need them. We'd have been a nation in a nation.
Okay, yeah.
Literally.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
so,
we can agree with that.
They can't have that.
Well, watch how it happens. Watch how it happens.
His personal life was just a means to bring about the end of a movement.
Yeah, but when they realized
he
that
destroyed himself.
he was going to back out of
York
it, when they realized he was going to back out of it and placed his son in charge, you know, that son got assassinated.
And what son was that?
That was, his name was Yadullahi.
Okay. Somebody in the chat said that a son John or something. Let me see.
Here's what happens. Somebody in the chat
on Dr. York
mentions
I don't
Jacob.
know
Watch.
John.
Listen.
Somebody said John. Somebody type it back in there. I kind of missed it. I don't know if it said John or something else. But it says one son that testified against them or something like that. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware. I wasn't around.
Jacob York. It said Jacob York.
There you go.
Jacob York.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You know what's so funny?
Here, let me back this up.
Back in there, I kind of missed it. I don't know if
check out the screen.
Something else.
Check out the
but
screen.
It says one son that testified against them or something like that. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware. I wasn't around.
Jacob York. It said Jacob York. Jacob York.
Oh yeah.
It's right
Yeah,
here.
I mean, yeah, you know what's so funny? Yeah, he's the same person that left me in foster care, as a matter of fact. The same brother that left me in foster care, Jacob York, is that what people talking about? Because, you know, I remember when it was what is the name of it? It was a place that we were at. This was before my father was incarcerated. The name of the place was called the Buttercup.
And okay, she's gonna go into a little more. You need to hear this right here.
I remember it in Brooklyn, New York. There was a meeting that Jacob called a meeting for brothers and sisters to come through, and his whole purpose was to take him down. The people that was there, because I got invited there, you know, because I just got off the land, so they wanted me to talk about it, but I refused. They wanted me to, you know, do stuff with them, and I refused. I was just like, no, I want nothing to do with this shit. You know what I'm saying? My sisters, there was a couple of siblings there, and trust and believe you me, I really want to say their names so damn bad. Let's just say you definitely said one of their names, or better yet, my father gonna say one of their names. She was there.
Okay, you hear right here? Now, if you watch this, you know, we're kind of holding the phone with one hand, and it's like, and then scrolling and pausing the other phone right there. You can clearly see the timestamp, the time mark. We can go over it again. But that's where Jacob York's name was mentioned. Now, why am I going through this? Why are we going through this? Because we keep hearing Taharka Bey saying, you know, we didn't even mention his name, and he just jumped in the chat and like just came in on it, and he was aggressive and such and such. You hear what was said about this Jacob York. And it's not defending this Jacob York. We don't know him, but we observe and we were witnessing this, and I guess it's cognitive dissonance. You know, those who say they're critical thinkers, but really hypocritical thinkers. Because then he goes through this whole rant in the next video where he focuses on Jacob York and basically asks the viewers and all that are watching, is actually Jacob York basically, you know, like something like set up his father. This is the next video. We're not gonna go all in that. It's not that kind of video. It's just that we can have the evidence in case this video disappears or whatever else like that. You know, I'm sure many people have copies of it. It was very, very interesting, the back and forth. But if you check it out from roughly where we began the video and the rest of it, and then just remember and recall, somebody in the chat mentioned Jacob York. Taharka Bey couldn't recall if he was calling out John, and then he went and found out that it was Jacob. You saw it came on the screen for a moment. We didn't even get to catch who commented and what they said. You know, who the person who put that comment up there. So we don't know. That's the person who first really mentioned it. Then Taharka brought it forward. And then Uma York, she starts to go into that, say, yeah, and then say something about putting her in foster care. She accuses her brother, I guess older brother Jacob, of putting her in foster care. Then she talks about some Buttercup Lounge, where she implies there was some sort of conspiracy. And you know, and then she says, believe you me. No, I don't believe you me. You know, why should we believe any of this? But we take it all in, and some things seem to be true that she's saying. But when we hear Taharka saying that, well, like almost he don't know why he wanted to come in, and he's saying when Jacob finally is given the link and he comes in, he basically is saying because his name was mentioned. And so it seems as though if one hears their name being mentioned and being accused of whatever, and they want to defend their name, they're seeking to try to defend their name. But then Taharka, I don't know if he has amnesia or forgetfulness, or doesn't rewind or check out his own video, or everybody's gassing him up, and nobody's telling him that, hey, this was said. It wasn't like you just called him out, and it didn't seem to be like Uma just called him out. But then later on, he makes it seem like nobody was mentioning him. He just inserted himself into all of this. Nobody mentioned him. But there is the 1 hour and 16 or so minute mark of this particular video, which you can clearly hear them saying that this Jacob York, mentioning his name, well, somebody in the chat had posted something, you know, left on the screen for a moment. And that incentivized basically a little more. You could hear his name mentioned a few times. And then they said, oh, he's trying to get in, or somebody called him to get in on this chat and to say something. And then Taharka acts like, well, why are you so determined to such and such? Because his name was mentioned in some way that I would think that if it was my name, and I think or know that I'm not guilty or would like to defend myself about whatever people, the public, or somebody on the show is saying, and she also, but then later on in this very same program, it's like Taharka seemed to be caping for his guests, and he doesn't really have to do that. He didn't have to go all like, oh, nobody mentioned your name, nobody mentioned your name, you just want to come in here. And he said, yes, my name was mentioned, Well, nobody mentioned your name, nobody mentioned your name. Is he forgetful? Is he senile? The name was mentioned, and here is where the name was mentioned. I don't know if anybody else is going to, put two and two together. I don't know if I even want to put up this particular video and say, okay, Jacob York's name was mentioned, like, insert ourselves into this is some cray-crayness. This makes for great viewing and discussion, but not to get in the midst of this right here. But, even if someone's my enemy and I hear something wrong said about them, or somebody say something and then they say they didn't say it, and I know clearly I heard it said, and I can rewind it, that's basically what we just did right here, just rewound it. You know what I mean? So you can hear it even in this particular video. And then in the next video that we watched, it was interesting. We didn't think we was going to watch the whole thing, but we did. So our views, also add to his views. And some things we find very interesting that, this brother puts out, but then we hear one saying that nobody mentioned your name. You just wanted to put yourself in the midst of this and such and such and such. It sounds really fugazi. Like, and not to even say the ucked up, got ambushed, zipped in. Right, so just body bag the lies, he likes to call people bottom feeders that, say anything about him. He's very sensitive. Taharka basically is very sensitive. I hope you're not too sensitive about this, like we're joining anybody's bandwagon. It's just that his name was said. You need to really correct that and retract that. You know what I mean? Because if you keep saying, like he said it then, I can understand maybe he didn't remember in this video. Then we hear next video after that where he's saying the same thing. Nobody mentioned his name and he just wanted to, my sister was here and he didn't know it was his sister. He said, I think he said Leah. And you see, he don't even know who he's talking to. He made a big point about that. And it's like, in a sense, gaslighting his own audience on a certain level. Right? While on the next hand, you're saying that this Jacob York's name was not mentioned. And sometimes that happens. We've heard him say something and it's incorrect, and like somebody may correct and say, oh, he'll laugh it off, or point out that yeah I made a mistake, and boom boom boom, and keep moving. But when this Jacob York calls her Leah, she's the one who's a little bit hype and aggressive, even if it is because her story is true or what have you. We don't know if it's true. We shouldn't be just caping because even if it's a woman, that necessarily it is true. Because check this out. A lot of times for a man and a woman are having conversation and differing, it's like we've been programmed to take, say, the woman's side and say, man, you're a man, just let the woman get away with it. But yet, when the other person's in the same shoes, they were not allowed and tolerated. It's like a man arguing or disagreeing with a woman. They having a disagreement. Other woman might join the side of the woman. But then the same woman will have a disagreement, and they'll go even to the B words and go further than that. Well, how is that? So only a woman can disagree with a woman? You see what I'm saying? Or you're taking a side because someone is alleging something that still we really don't know? So just based on what I've heard right here, when she says, well, you believe me, I want to mention other people, so forth and so on. No, I'm not going to believe you. You know what I mean? Especially based on these little things that really mean a lot, like somebody's name being mentioned. The only thing is that it wasn't Taharka Bey that just jumped out the window and mentioned his name. He saw a comment, So to his credit, so to speak, and he inquired about it. Once he mentioned the name because one of the people in the chat mentioned and posted something. You get it? And then she even, Khair, Khair. It's interesting because, Tarka can't even, really, but anyway, that's a whole different thing right there. That's speaking about something else. But it's like he zooms in on one point, but I think it's to avoid a next point. He zooms in on the fact that while Jacob, when he comes on, is trying to address what his sister is saying, he calls her by the name of another sister, and he says something about having over 100 or something like siblings. Sometimes we only have a few siblings, you know what I mean? Or not even siblings. Sometimes we might misname in the heat of the moment, so to speak. Not the heat of the moment, but you know what I'm saying? It happens. I've heard him do this. I've heard a lot of people doing it. I've done it myself. But he makes that the point. You know what I mean? And then he says that this Jacob York just inserted himself in without any pretext. And then worse than that, he says, nobody mentioned his name. Nobody mentioned his name. No, his name was mentioned. And I'm just surprised that none of the viewers even, well, not none, but...
My sister, older sister, that's the twin to the one that was assassinated, was there, and there was a couple of other people there, and there was some people that came, heard it, and was like, I want no ends on this, and walked away and walked out, literally. And then there was the rest of them that, they went along with it.
Okay, we're not going to play this video. You could...
Flipped on Dr. York.
I don't know a son named John.
Was it somebody said John? Somebody type it back in there. I kind of missed it. I don't know if it said John or something else. But it says one son that testified.
See, somebody could say, "Oh, you must have read it, but you said John. You don't even know what you're talking about." But it's his broadcast. Let's just go ahead and just let you hear it again.
Or something like that. Are you aware of that?
Here you go.
No, I'm not aware. I wasn't around.
Jacob York. It said Jacob York.
So he said the name.
Jacob York.
Oh yeah.
It's right here.
There you go, right there.
Yeah,
you see?
What's so funny?
See?
He's the same person that left me in foster care, as a matter of fact. The same brother that left me in foster care, Jacob York, is that what people talking about? Because, I remember when it was, what is the name of it? It was a place that we were at. This was before my father was incarcerated. The name of the place was called the Buttercup Lounge on Adelphi Street. I remember it, in Brooklyn, New York. There was a meeting that Jacob...
Well, actually, she mentioned you hear the name really again. Okay. We BK all day. So, not all day, but that's back in the days. Yeah, so it's not Adelphi, it's Adelphi. But anyway, you heard it for yourself. Ma'at Reigns, don't get it twisted. I think that's the commenter, the one in the chat that posted something, and they ran off of that. He mentioned it, and then she mentioned it. Then he must have been informed or watching or whatever, and would like to say something, and comes in the chat, and that's how he came in the chat. Just a FYI, to Brother Taharka Bey, Moorish World TV. So, correct and update that. Otherwise, some very interesting content, to say the least. So this is the point. This is the point of the video. 1 hour, 15 minutes, around 58 seconds. A little before that, say 1 hour, 15 minutes. That's the time stamp right there. Ma'at Reigns, don't get it twisted, posted. Jacob York approached Dr. York for money to get in the entertainment industry, hence producing Little Kim's album. Dr. York told him no. Jacob grew furious. Now, I guess we believe this, we don't believe this. I've heard this too before, but anyway, Ma'at Reigns is the one that dropped Jacob York's name. Taharka picked up on it, and then York, she went further and elaborated on it. So that's the reason it seems to be that Jacob jumped in. And as once again, we're not defending Jacob York, but Taharka Bey, stop saying, oh, he just jumped in the chat like nobody mentioned it. If you watch this video, at least from here, if you just zoom up to this point, because it gets really, really interesting after this point. And since it's his own content, you know, for fair use, you know, we'll say less. God bless.